Hi there and welcome to this video on installing movable type onto your system. At some time, if you're going to move beyond the free bloggers like blogger.com and a few others, or any other server hosted service, you'll be wanting to install your own blogging software, your own content management software on your own system. One of the best that there are is Movable Type. For my money, Movable Type is probably the daddy of them all. And when one takes a look at the standalone weblog tools that there are, the software, Movable Type has about 75% of the market of this software, way above Microsoft's Visual Studio, which only has around about 4%. Movable Type is an absolutely amazing program, and I do hope that you'll enjoy this video as we install this, and I'll be showing you bit by bit how we do it. So welcome. So let's install Movable Type. One of the things you'll find is that there's no fancy wizard as there is in Windows or Mac OS X to guide you through the installation process. It's all rather complex job that's done by hand. However, the good news is that there is this video and I'm going to lead you through it step by step. Also, of course, at the end of the process you'll have a greater understanding of how it's all put together. What we're going to show you in this section is firstly how to download the software, then to tell the software where to find Perl, remember that one? Then we're going to create a database ready to be used by the software. Then we'll edit the configuration file and upload the software to the server. Then we'll set some security settings there so that only the right people will be able to run the software. And then we'll run the initial check and initialize the software. So that's it. Let's now go and download that software. One of the first questions that is usually asked by people is, can my server run Movable Type? Well, in this section we're going to test that our server has the necessary requisites to run this program. Another question that's asked is, which platform is best to run it? Well, Movable Type runs best, I believe, on a Linux platform, but it's not mandatory. It can also be run on Microsoft Windows that's equipped with the language Perl and with the database MySQL. But beware, Movable Type will not run with Access or anything that smells remotely like it. Movable Type also runs very well on a Mac OS X box. For the purposes of this training video, we'll concentrate on Linux. Frankly, even if you've got to rent some web space on a Linux server just for Movable Type, it's going to be worth it as support cost will be a lot lower. So how then do we check for the prerequisites? Movable Type is written in a language called Perl, and you'll need to make sure that Perl is installed on your server, and then to decide on a database for your project. I'm just going to put this away for a moment. I'm going to connect to my server using the program PuTTY. It's a secure shell system, SSH. You could also use Telnet if your server is unsecured or if SSH is not available. I'm going to log in here. Let me just centerize this as admin. You shouldn't see the password. And here I am logged on to my Linux box. Now that I'm connected, I'm going to find out whether Perl is resident. So I give the command, where is Perl? And back comes the response. Now if the reply is nothing, then you need to ask what kind of Linux is this, because Perl usually comes with it. As I say, I'm using a client program called Putty, and in your Rolodex on the disk you'll find a link to this program. It's free, and if you use Windows you should use this to connect to your Linux box. If you're a Mac user, wonderful, you have an inbuilt terminal program that has SSH built in. Here's the response to Where is Perl. The first entry here is user bin perl 5.00503, which tells us which version we've got. There's also a manual here as well, but the one we're interested in is this, /user/bin/perl. Notice the slashes are different ways from Windows. /user/bin/perl. Make a note of it, we're going to need this later. We'll now come back up to the second prerequisite that we need, which is a database program. Now the program can be used with 4 different databases, Berkeley DB and SQLite, which are file-based programs, and the professional relational databases MySQL and PostgreSQL. Movable Type usually recommends either Berkeley DB or MySQL. I personally recommend MySQL as it's usually resident with Linux, and it's a powerful, sturdy product. We're going to create a database as part of our installation in section 3, but in the meantime let's just examine my database and look at the fields contained within it. MT author, which are user accounts of weblog editors and type key users who sign in to post comments. MT blog, which is information about each weblog. MT category, which are categories available on the weblogs. You can assign different categories, make them up so that you can put them in various categories, always very useful. Comments, MT comment, comments posted by weblog visitors. MT entry, which is the actual weblog itself, the actual entry for each in each of the logs. MT file info, attached files. MT IP ban list, these are IP addresses who are banned from posting comments on trackback. MT log is an activity log tracking use of the software by editors, those who are creating the weblogs. MT notification are lists of users requesting email when the web's been updated, the weblog's been updated. MT permission, tasks that weblog editors have permission to perform. MT placement are category assignments for the weblog entries. MT plugin data is information about installed plugins. There's always lots of new stuff. Let's scroll this down a bit. MT session, which is user tracking sessions. MT TB ping, which is trackback pings received by weblogs along with the MT trackback, you'll see in a minute. MT template, which are templates stored in the database. MT template map, which is a map determining how the templates are used. And MT trackback, which are trackback pings received by the weblogs, together with MT TB ping, which I mentioned a moment ago. There are also some additional Perl modules which you could choose to install, but very little is mandatory, and if you have followed my advice and install the complete Movable Type package, you'll have it up and running without any additional modules. You will, however, find details of the additional modules in the Movable Type documentation. So then, the most important parts of this initial check are to ensure that Perl is present and that a suitable database program has been chosen. In the next section we'll collect all the necessary files and install the software. Okay, so we're going to download the Movable Type software from their site, www.movabletype.org actually. And then when it comes up, the site, we'll click on Get It Now. Interesting as we take a look at the various pricings and licenses, on the personal side you've got a basic license which gives up to 5 weblog authors and unlimited numbers of weblogs, or an unlimited license which gives unlimited authors and unlimited weblogs. There's also a range of prices for not-for-profit organizations, education, and commercial organizations. But let's stick with personal for a moment. I would recommend you go for this limited free version. It is unsupported and you're limited to 1 author and 3 blogs. However, it does give you the ability to install it, to get used to the software, and then to decide which license best suits your needs. So we're going to download now. And you're going to have to agree to the usual terms of reference, terms of service. That is, if you do anything wrong, they'll take your granny hostage. Add ourselves to the Movable Type news and continue. Now, before we log in to download Movable Type, we'll obviously need a user ID and password in order to log in to do it. And this is where Type Key comes in. Register with Type Key. There's a little security warning here that says some of the items on this page are actually non-secure. What it is, it's this Movable Type logo up here that's actually on an unsecure portion of their site, but I wouldn't worry too much. I'm going to say yes to display everything. And here is where you sign up for Type Key. It is a free service, you'll never be charged, and from this you'll be able to download your copy of Movable Type. It also enables you to comment on other people's weblogs as well with a single login. There has been a problem with all kinds of crazy people leaving comments on weblogs and you don't know who they are. This way they have to have a Type Key user ID and password in order to even leave comments on your weblog, which maybe is a good thing. I don't know, the debate's still going on that one. So fill this out and you'll be able to download your copy of Movable Type. I've already done so, so I'm going back and I'm going to log in to download Movable Type. Log in with my user ID and password and wait for it to come up. Now here is the download page. Always download the full version rather than the upgrade version. It does keep track of all of the various Perl modules that you will need. It doesn't take long to download and upload back to your server, so you may as well have it. Go for the zip file and let's now download it. And it says click here if your download doesn't begin immediately or promptly. Should be, and here we are. What shall we do with it? Shall save it on the desktop and we'll wait for that to come down the line now. Shouldn't take too long. It's only about 1.8 meg or so, the whole zip file. And there is it. It's finished. Now if I just close down this box for a moment, I can see that on the desktop is this zip file. You will need to unzip it, unpack it. If you've got any version of Windows less than XP, an earlier version, you'll probably need something like WinZip. Macintosh platform will unzip automatically. In XP, which I'm using here, will also unzip automatically just by double clicking this folder you see with a zip on. Double click it, and here we see the folder MT315 full English US. I'm going to drag that now onto the desktop, which will unsqueeze it. It says 2 hours and 57 minutes remaining. It will not take that long, believe me, more like 2 minutes. I don't know what it is about XP not really calculating time properly, but let's just wait for a moment. I'm going to pause while it does this. And that's almost finished there. 10 seconds left or so before it's completely finished. And that's it. That's finished there. Let me get rid of this. And here is the unzipped folder with all of the files and folders in there. In the next section we'll be preparing some of these files so that they can know where Perl is. Okay, so now we have downloaded the movable type files to our desktop. You'll see here a number of files with a .cgi extension, together with a .cfg file, which is the configuration file. Now all these are the movable type program files, and we're going to need to make changes to at least 2 of them. But before we do, let me issue a warning. When editing these files, avoid Microsoft Word like the plague. Why? Well, it formats text files with their own proprietary formatting information, and it makes it unreadable on our servers. If you're using Windows, then download a copy of Copywriter, which is a free text editor. If you're a Mac user, then I recommend BBEdit, and you'll find links to both of these programs in your Rolodex. Now there's some more information that we require. Firstly, where is Perl? Do you remember? Let's close this down for a moment, and this, and let's run up our program again. Give my password. And we issue the command, where is Perl? Do you remember that? Make a note of this. It's user/bin/Perl. You'll also need to find out where sendmail is. We'll need to write this information down. We will need it. And here it is, user sbin sendmail. Finally, you'll need to ask your server hosting company where the absolute address of your HTML is. It's probably something like /home/user/web. Mine is something like /home/site/site32/web. Make a note of all these because we're going to need them. Now the question that we need to ask now is your Perl location the same as mine, user bin Perl, or is it something else? If it's user bin Perl, then we've saved ourselves a lot of stages. If it's anything else, then we'll need to change all of the CGI files, all of them, except for mt-db-pass-.cgi. That's a special file containing a password. So let's take a look at one of these CGIs. I'm just going to drag this across to give us some more room. Close this one down and bring up MT Comments CGI, drag it on top of Copywriter, and here is the program. And you'll notice right at the top there, #!/user/bin/Perl. There's also a -w flag there as well. This is what we're interested in here, /user_bin_Perl. If your Perl is in any other location other than this, you'll need to change this to point to the real location on your server. And it's got to be right at the top there, right at the top of the page there, starting off #!. This tells the program where to find Perl. If it's anything else, you need to change it on every CGI except the mt-db-pass CGI. Make sure the entry, as I say, is right at the top of the page. So now we've told the program where to find Perl. Let's move on. Okay, so now in this section we're going to give birth to the database. We're going to create a MySQL database for use with movable type, and at the same time create a MySQL user that movable type can use to access this database. Now we could use an existing database, but generally it's not a good idea. The prime thing to remember is keep your data separate from anyone else's. Now we're going to create a database called Movable 777, a user called Jiffy, and a password for Jiffy called Shadow. And I'm going to show you two ways to do this. The first way now is from the command line, and strangely, unlike most command line working, this one is actually the easiest. Firstly, we get to our Linux command prompt, as you see here, and we log on to MySQL using our master password. MySQL --user equals root password equals whatever. Now you really didn't think I was going to type my real password in there, did you? Hang on there a moment. So here we are, the MySQL prompt. Now we're going to issue the following command. Watch this carefully. Create database Movable 777, and always finish this off with a semicolon. That's it. It's done. The next bit we need is to create the user, Jiffy, identified by the password Shadow, and to grant them all the rights that they need. I'm going to put this actually as a caption on the bottom of the screen here for you. Grant all on Movable 777 .star to Jiffy at open quotation marks, the double ones, %, close quotation marks, identified by open quotation mark Shadow, the password, semicolon. This says grant all access rights on Movable 777 and all the fields to Jiffy at any location that he cares to come in from, identified by Shadow, which is the password. We could have said Jiffy at localhost here, which would have been on this side, but sometimes Red Hat Linux has a bit of problem in finding out where localhost is, so this should be okay. And here we are, the query's been accepted, and that's all away now, and we quickly exit. So we're out of MySQL now. That's all there is to it, to create the database and the user for it. But I'm going to show you now how we do the same job in phpMyAdmin. So here we have phpMyAdmin, which is the standard tool for front-ending MySQL. So we're going to create a new database here, Movable 777, and create. That's created it okay. We won't be creating any tables on the database for the simple reason is that movable type constructs this when we go through the setup sequence. Go back to the home, go to the privileges, and we go to the bottom here and add a new user, Jiffy. We leave this field blank. The password we put in as shadow, and shadow again. We're not going to put any global privileges in here, it's just the privileges for this database. So we say go, and that's it. Whatever method you use, you've just given birth to a database. Just as an additional configuration marker, there is one other file that needs to be changed. It's called mt-db-pass.cgi. Although it's got a .cgi extension, it's not actually a runnable program. It just holds the password to the database. So we need to change this. Remember what Jiffy's password was? That's it, shadow. And we'll save that away. And that's it. That's done. Okay, we now come to one of the most important parts of getting the movable type software ready. That's changing the mt.cfg file, the configuration file. I've opened this, as you see, in Copywriter, which is a plain text editor, and we're going to run from there. You'll remember that we've created a database called Movable 777. We've also created a user called Jiffy with a password of shadow. And I'm going to create a new movable type installation on my website momsbusiness.com. So let's take a look at this movable type configuration file and work our way through it. First item to change is this item here, CGI path. This shows where the actual CGI scripts are going to be located. I generally put them in a CGI-bin directory. Furthermore, because I run a number of other CGI programs, I put movable type in a directory all on its own called MT. So I'm going to change this, the CGI path, to www.momsbusiness.com/cgi-bin/mt. Finish off with the slash there. The next item is the data source, which is here as ./db. I would suggest you leave that alone. There's no reason at all to change that unless you really feel you need to. Moving down, you'll note that many of the options from this point onwards are commented out. That is, there's a hash marker before each item. In order to use them, we'll need to take out the hash marker there. Again, next item is which kind of database do we use? Well, we're going to use MySQL. So we're actually going to take this comment out here, sorry about that, and this one, and this one, and this one, and now we'll begin to change them. The object driver is DBI MySQL there. The database name is, remember, Movable 777. The database username is Jiffy, and we'll be taking care of the password later. The host that it's on is localhost, always localhost. Moving down, throttle seconds. You can read this if you like, but leave it alone. That works well enough. Need to have another email address from which movable type can send notifications. It usually defaults to the author address, but I'm actually going to change this here because, as they say, some spam filters don't like from and to email addresses being the same. So email address is going to be admin@momsbusiness.com. Next item is very important. It says if you place all of your movable type files in a CGI bin directory, you will need to situate the static files, docs, images, styles, etc. elsewhere, so that the web server will not try to execute them. So I'm now going to change my static web path to the following: www.momsbusiness.com/static files. There we go. And let's not forget to take out the comment line, otherwise it will not work. Next item, template path. Leave that alone. That works quite well. It will default to .tmpl anyway, so you don't need to take out this hash marker, this comment marker, unless you want to put it somewhere else. Now we're coming on to where movable type looks for send mail. You'll remember that on my system it's user/sbin/sendmail, and by default movable type looks for sendmail in 3 locations: user lib sendmail, user sbin sendmail, and user ucb lib sendmail. It says if your sendmail is different, you can adjust it here by taking out the comment marker and changing it. Ours is in user sbin sendmail, and so movable type will look for it and find it. If you decide that you don't want to use sendmail but you want to use SMTP instead, then you'll need to uncomment out these 2 lines and change these. I find sendmail quite good enough anyway. Next item, movable type writes temporary files. If you don't want them written, then uncomment this, but leave it alone. From now on I'm going to say leave it alone if you want to leave it alone, because it's not important. But read the comments on the config file and we'll look at it a little bit later should you decide that you want to change it. When you enter a new new entry to a blog, what happens is that various places are pinged to let them know that a new entry is there, and you get known on the network. Sometimes these places will change their URLs and they will need to be changed here, but for the moment this works. Leave them well alone. So the weblogs ping, the blogs ping, and the MT ping, leave alone. Next item. When uploading files through movable type's upload mechanism, a ceiling is put on the size of files that can be uploaded. By default, the setting is 1 megabyte. You could decide that you want to change that to something else. I would suggest you leave it alone, but you can always change it here. Again, remembering to take out the comment if you do change it. Next item is with regard to what's called UMask settings. I would suggest you leave those alone, not necessary to change those at all. Again, leave these ones alone here. This shows where the temp directory for uploaded files, again leave them alone. Number of items to rebuild at once. If you've got a very stable server, you might want to take that out and put that up to, I don't know, 500, but I would suggest leave alone. It works. Ditto for the import path here. Again, leave this, the Perl's flock or file locking function, leave that alone. Again on this, no locking here on for Windows systems. Default language. This is interesting. I would suggest that you leave this alone here. And also the published character set is what's called UTF-8. Some Japanese people prefer something else called JIS, and then you would comment out this line and uncomment this line. Again, leave this one as is, and this one, leave them alone, not necessary to change them. Timeout pings, you can leave that as is. again leave all of these alone here. There's some interesting comments here about the comment scripts and a number of other things. Some people prefer them not to be called .cgis and prefer .pls. In that case, you would need to change these by taking out all of these comments here and changing the names of the files as well, of course. Safe mode is on. Security and other items are all turned on. If you want to run in an unsafe mode, you take this marker off here, this hash sign. All of these can be left as is. There's nothing there that will buy you anything in the short term, but read at your leisure. All of these items here are all okay. That's your MT config. We need to save it away. Save. And that's it. That's your configuration file actually done. Probably one of the hardest things if you're doing lots and lots of changes to those entries. Read it through, but I would suggest not experimenting in the short term. Just go through those items that I've gone through with you, and that will get you up and running. Okay, so those ones are finished now. We're going to upload a few more things. Upload this index all on its own here. And now the main programs themselves. All these CGIs here. These two have already been uploaded. That's it, and don't forget to upload the configuration file as well. So that's it. We've uploaded everything that we need to, and now we're going to move on in a few moments to setting up the security permissions for all of these files. Okay, so having changed our configuration file and made the necessary changes in any other file, we're now going to upload all of the files and the programs to our website. We're going to upload them to two separate locations. The CGI path, which is the main directory where the program runs, and also the static web path, which is where we hold our images and other items needed for the user interface. I'm using WSFTP program to upload, and there are plenty of other FTP programs around. You choose your own ones there. I'll be putting a link to a free FTP program in your Rolodex. But here we are on the, you'll see my site here, www.momsbusiness.com, and here we are, the site's here, and this is my local hard disk drive here on this computer, and I'm going to be transferring all of this over to here. One thing to remember though, the HTML files and the CGI files and any documents really do have to be uploaded in text mode or ASCII mode. That's ASCII, plain text mode, and you'll use whatever options on your FTP program to make sure that those are done. So that's docs, CGIs and HTML pages, if any, templates need to be uploaded in plain text or ASCII. Everything else can be uploaded in binary, things like images, things like that anyway. First of all, we're going to upload, here's the static files. This is the main web directory, and here's the static files directory, subdirectory here, and we're going to upload this. Firstly, we're going to upload docs into, I'm going to drag that into static files. And away it goes. I can see from the bottom that's uploading there now. And that will be a little time before that finishes. We'll return when the docs have finished uploading. Okay, so all of the documents, the docs directory has been transferred into static files. We're now going to take the images and put that into static files as well. And there it is, that's going away. Uploading that, that'll be a little time before that's finished, and we'll return when that's nearly finished. And so that's finished there, the images are finished coming across. There's also a styles CSS here that needs to be, there we go, that right at the bottom there, that needs to come across into static files. And the file mtjs, that's the one just above it there, needs to come into static files as well. If we actually go into static files now on the remote server, you'll see that docs and images have become subdirectories off of static files. Let's go back a stage to the main web directory. And here we are again. Right, everything else is going to go into the CGI bin. Remember we made a subdirectory MT, so that's all going into there. I'm going to put examples, xlib. Let's put those across first of all, shall we? I'm going to click here now because they're just going across on their own. And we'll come back when that's finished. Okay, these folders have almost finished uploading. That seems to be it. We've already uploaded images, you'll remember, so I'm now going to upload lib, PHP, plugins, schemas, search templates, templates and tools. Let's upload those. And again, we'll come back when those are done. Okay, we're now going to set up some security permissions. That's the next job. One other task we needed to do, which I didn't do last time round when we were uploading, is to create an import directory there. I've logged on to my server in the Linux shell, as you can see here, and I've actually logged on as root, which you'll probably need to do to set these permissions. I'm in the web directory, so I need to change directory to get into the CGI directory, and up one more to the MT directory there. If I print working directory, here we are. Now if I now create a new directory, make directory, and we're going to call it import. That's what we need to have there whenever we're importing items in there. And I'm also going to create a directory called archive. So I think we're going to need that as well for putting archived items. Fair enough there. Now I'm going to set up the security permissions. First of all, I want to change all the CGIs, the MT CGIs. chmod 755 mtstar.cgi, and that's everything changed there, quick enough. The next item we need to do is to go back and make the archive to 777. We'll need that, so chmod 777 archive, and I think we'll change the import as well. So those are all set for read, write and execute. Finally, I'm going to go back one space, cd ... and also make chmod 777 empty, make that directory. That's it, all of our security permissions should now be in place. Right then, movable type is now in its correct place, the permissions have all been set, and now we're going to run an initial check to see whether everything is okay. So I'm going to www.momsbusiness, be good if I could spell it right, .com. Remember, we're in the CGI bin, we're in the MT directory, and I'm going to run mt-check.cgi. And here we are. It's checked out fine. Let me go through it. As it says at the top, this page provides you with information on your system's configuration and determines whether you have all of the components you need to run movable type. So here we are here, system information, checks for the required modules. HTML template, we're fine. Image size, fine. File spec, fine. CGI cookie, fine. These are required or mandatory modules. We now look at the data storage modules. It says here the following modules are used by the different data storage options in movable type. In order to run the system, your server needs to have at least one of these modules installed. Well, we do. DB file is installed. DBD MySQL is installed. DBD PG is not installed there, but we don't need it because we're not using the PostgreSQL database. We're using MySQL. Ditto DBD SQLite. Not using it, don't need it. We do have MySQL and also DB file. We now check for optional modules. It says the following modules are optional. If your server doesn't have these modules installed, you only need to install them if you require the functionality that the module provides. HTML entries, OK. LWP user agent, OK. SOAP light, OK. File temp. Image magic, we don't have. We're not intending on this site to create thumbnails of uploaded images. I guess it would be a nice thing to have, but we're interested in getting a basic system up and running. Storables not installed. Again, storable is optional. Sometimes certain movable type plugins available from third parties requires it. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. At the moment, we don't have any optional modules. Crypt DSA, we're not decrypting items. MIME's there, and XML atoms there. And what's it saying? This is the big thing. Movable type system check successful. You're ready to go. We have all of the required modules installed. Do not need to perform any additional module installation. So we are now ready to load and install. We've done the initial check. Everything's okay now. Okay, this is the big one. We're now going to load it. This is quite a big step, so here we go. www.momsbusiness.com/cgibin/mt/mt-load CGI. Hit return and let's see what happens. This page configures movable type to run on your system. If all of the tasks needed to set up movable type complete successfully, you'll see a notice to the effect at the bottom. Well, we loaded the initial data. This looks okay here in this section. It's complete. There we go. Great stuff. Fantastic. This really is good news indeed. You might think that was quite simple, but believe me that if you've reached this part in your movable type installation, then you really have achieved a significant accomplishment, especially if you've never installed anything on a server like this before. It's all there now. it's all there, and in a few moments we're going to look at actually putting our configuring our first weblog. Just a note of caution, now that you've run mtload CGI, you'll never need to run it again. You should now delete mtload from your server. I'll show you how to delete that right now. Okay, what I'm going to do is just hide this one away for a moment. Here's my my SSH connection onto my Linux server there. We're in web at the moment, logged on as root, cd CGI bin. Let's change directory to the CGI bin, change directory upwards again to MT, and let's do an ls, and there we will find mtload CGI right at the top there. So we're going to remove file mtload.cgi. That's removed. That's no longer there. So exit out of that. Exit out of that. That's finished. Bring this back up here, and there we are. We've deleted mtload, and we're now ready to configure our weblog. Okay, so we've loaded the software, and now we're going to configure and construct our first blog, our first weblog. Now, even with the free personal edition, you're able to construct 3 different weblogs using movable type. When we log in, you'll find that there is already a user on the site. Her name is Melody. She also has her own weblog, which we're going to see in a moment. Now, to get started, we need to run mt.cgi, www.momsbusiness.com-cgi bin/mt/mt.cgi, or wherever yours is. And up it comes. Now you'll see the logo in the top left hand corner here. There she is. Excuse my drawing. There's the logo there. And if you don't see the logo graphic and it's all over the place, then your static web folder has not been set properly. Same thing happened to me actually with this installation. I set the name of the static web in the CF file, the configuration file, as static-web, but actually on the website I created the folder as static underscore files, so I had to make the change there. Anyway, we're going to log on with the username Melody and the password Nelson. Everybody that uses movable type will know of Melody Nelson. This name and password is built in. We'll be getting rid of it in a minute. Why Melody Nelson, you might ask? Well, Ben and Mina Trott, the movable type inventors, were Serge Gainsbourg fans. You know, the French pop singer, who they'd originally planned to call their software Serge for his sake. Serge had released an album from the perspective of a man obsessed with a young woman called Melody Nelson, and so this became the first user. Long history of putting musicians' names into software somewhere there. Let's log on this then. Just wait for this to come up, and up it comes here, and you'll see the username Melody at the top there, and her first weblog. Now we better change this, as I say, pretty quick. So first let's set up the account. Melody has all of the facilities and all of the usages of every bit of the software there. We need to change this straight away. So we'll click here on Melody, and I'm going to change the name to Fred, with the nickname of Fred, an email address of fred@gmail.com. Preferred language US English. Why don't they have UK English, or I don't know, something else? You've also got these boxes here: remote authentication, type key site token, type key username. Not necessarily at the moment. We'll talk about these later as a way of shielding the site from comments from spammers and other people, so that only authenticated people can use them. That's a good use for that, but at the moment doesn't concern us at the moment. We need to go to the bottom here, change the password. We don't want it Nelson anymore, but we'll call it Smith for the moment. S-M-I-T-H. So it's Fred and Smith. And password recovery, my birthplace is London, and save away. And there's the first bit of it. The profile has been updated, and we'll see that the username is Fred. Let's go now to the first weblog. So it's first weblog, and we're going to change the name of this weblog in a moment. Okay, so we're going to configure the first weblog. Here we are there where we were a moment ago. We need to go back to the main menu here and make sure you're on this menu here. This is the main menu, and we're going to go for the configuration option there. And here's the core setup. First thing I'm going to give it a name. I'm actually going to name this weblog the same as the website, Mom's Business. I'm only going to have one. The local site path, where the main index.html of the blog is going to be there. Now you might well have it as your main web page, in which case it would be here in web rather than further down in CGI /MT. I prefer to have my own discrete index.html or HTML on web as a standalone item, which might then link into the blog later on. I like to keep that one free and spare, so it might be advisable to follow suit for now. The site URL then, in that case, would not be momsbusiness.com. If you were going to have an as the main index, yes, you would leave it here, but we're going to put it here, so then it's cgi bin/mt/ remember the n/ for this one. Local archive path, we'll leave that as it is, I think. Archive URL, slightly different, it's missed off this bit here, so we're going to have CGI bin/mt. So you've got the local archive path of home, site 28 web, CGI bin mt archives, and the URL of that is www.momsbusiness.com CGI bin mt archives. The time zone, well, change your sign time to wherever you want to be. Well, I'd like to be in Barbados, so we could always go backwards there, but I have to set it for where I am, sadly, which is at Greenwich Mean Time, universal time here, so we'll save changes. And that's set up there for the moment. We'll rebuild the site. Rebuild all files, and away it will go. Okay, it's been rebuilt. Let's go and view our site. And there you go, it can't find it. Now, did you spot the deliberate error? Here it is. That should be CGI bin/mt, not .md. So I made a mistake there. Let's go back and correct that. Close it. And it's down here somewhere. The site URL is, there it is, That's dot there. Bit of finger trouble. /MT. Save changes. Didn't click it properly. Wait till that finishes. Rebuild the site. I'm going to rebuild. I'm going to pause that. Okay, so everything's rebuilt. I'm going to view the site this time. And there you go, it's up. Obviously no entries here yet, but we know the system works. I want to take a brief excursion here and talk about the licensing of movable type software. The reason why I'm mentioning it here is that if you have purchased a license, this is the time where we'll need to put the license number into the configuration file. First of all though, let's take a look at the pricing of the licenses. We briefly had a look at those when we were first running up the system there. There we have personal licenses, up to 5 authors and unlimited weblogs, $69.95. Unlimited authors, unlimited weblogs, $99.95. Not for commercial use, although as they say, a little ad revenue and affiliate programs are okay. If you really are using it personally without anything else and you don't need the support, then the limited free version is perfectly adequate there. The commercial versions, 1 to 5 users, $199.95, 10 users, $349.95, 20 users, 35 users, and 50 users, all with unlimited weblogs. In the education sector, K-12 and higher education, single classroom, $39.95, 300 students, $299.95, 1,000 students, $699.95, 2,000 students, 3,000 students there. And the not-for-profit prices, 1 to 5 users, $49.95, 10 users, 20 users, 35 users, and 50 users. There is a special there for volunteer-based groups. If your organization has 1 or fewer paid employees, you can download a fully functional supported license for $39.95. Good value. Or you can download the unsupported version for free, as I was talking about there. Now, in anything, if in any of these licenses that you pay for, there's money back guaranteed for 30 days, official technical support, and a whole host of other stuff that you can read about here. Well worth having. And if you're using it for any commercial means whatsoever, you really do need a commercial license. Don't let these guys down. They've worked long and hard to give us an absolutely brilliant product. Now once we've paid for our license, we can go to our account page, which is secure.https, by the way, 6apart.com account. That will come up. You may be asked to log in with the user ID and password. I've only got the free account, so there's not much information here as well. But you will have here, along with a lot of other options for support, you will have your update key. That's your license number. And what you'll need to do is to copy that, wherever it is, and then go to your own website, your own movable type installation. Here's mine, Mom's Business. And then you'll go to configuration, which I've clicked on here. Wait for that to come up. Here's the course set up again, and we want preferences. This is the option we want here, preferences. And we want the publicity, remote interfaces and trackback, which is here. the updated keys. This is where you put your key in. This is where you will paste it in there as well. I would also suggest that you enable BlogGS, Weblogs and Technorati. These are sites that are notified when you put new entries in your blog. It's what's called pinging them. Lets them know that you've got a new entry, and then they come and have a look and index it, which is a good way of getting yourself known. Once that's done, you click on Save Changes, and that's it. Bob's your uncle, as they say. If each time you publish a new item in your weblog, that will show up in the recently updated section of the Movable Type homepage. Let's look at the Movable Type homepage here. 6apart.com Movable Type. Or you could go to movabletype.org. If you go down here, recently updated sites, there we are. They go off pretty fast, but you can be in there and be seen, as it were. In the next video, I want to talk about having what's called a Creative Commons license, but we'll come to that in a few minutes. I want at this stage to have a word about copyright. Now, if you want to retain absolute copyright to everything on your website without reservation, then you don't actually need to do anything at all. You don't even need to put one of those little C for copyright markers there to let everybody know. But it's always wise to do so. Now, having said all this, one of the strengths of weblogging, of blogging, is that it can be syndicated, and people can use extracts from it, and thereby you get even greater readership as they link to you. In many ways, we want to move from the all rights reserved to one of some rights reserved. The Creative Commons organization was formed in 2001 to encourage publishers and artists and others to share their copyrighted work under specific licenses that safeguard their interests whilst encouraging others to make use of the material. Now, before adopting a license for your Movable Type weblog, I would suggest that you actually take time to look at the creativecommons.org site, have a look around at all of the things there, and read through the type of licenses they offer. They're all free, by the way. Have a look, as I say, at their website before you decide what you want to do. I'm going to get a Creative Commons license for my site, and it's going to be of the form of no commercial use and no derivatives. Now, you may decide to allow people to use your information in derivatives. Anyone can quote from my site or even copy as a whole. But whatever license is chosen, any user of the information should actually give accurate attribution. So here we go. Main menu. And we need to edit the configuration here. And we're going to go to Preferences. Here are the preferences. We're going to scroll down here to the Creative Commons section. A little bit further. Here it is here. It actually says I'm currently licensed, but I'm not, for the simple reason that there is a slight bugette in Movable Type, and as of this date, April 19th, 2005, Movable Type do know about it and they're working on it. I'm going to remove what license is there, and it says I don't have an explicit license, but this is how to create one. Let's move this into view. I'm not going to allow commercial use of the work. and I'm not going to allow modifications of the work, no derivatives. So I'm going to select the license, and I have selected the attribution non-commercial no derivatives license. I'm now going to proceed. And we're back to mum's business there. I'm not going to do anything more on this except to save the changes. Rebuild the site. Rebuild all files. Let's pause while it does its stuff. That's all done. We'll close that, and I'm going to view the site. Here's the site down here, and you'll notice that there is a Creative Commons license here, and both this link here and this graphic, if I click on it, will go to it. Attribution non-commercial no derivatives. So under the following conditions, they are free to copy, distribute, display and perform the work, must give credit, non-commercial, no derivatives. And you can select a number of different licenses for your own needs there. I'm going to go back to the main menu for a moment, because as well as putting a link on that page there, it also puts it in the templates as well. We're going to just take a look at the RSS1 feed, which is this here. Let's just take a look at the code here. And there's the Creative Commons license here. That's where it displays there. So it's also displayed within inside the RSS feed, the syndication feed as well, so people know about it. Well, that's about it. We're going to return a little later to the Creative Commons licensing when we look at RSS2 a little later in our video. That's it for now. Okay, so we're quickly getting to near the end of our installation and configuration of the weblog software, and now we're going to look at adding other authors to the weblogs. Now, if you've got the right kind of license, you can add authors to the various weblogs. Each movable type installation can have a number of weblogs ranging from 3 in the free license up to unlimited in the various other licenses. And each weblog itself can be assigned different authors or combination of authors. You can also select which task and author can perform on a per weblog basis. For example, one of your super users could do anything that you can do. A more limited user might only be able to edit their own entry. There are also some more external plugins available that would enable you to create far more sophisticated setups. For example, the plugin Workflow allows you to grant publishing permission to only the authors you choose, who you could regard as the editors, whilst other authors, contributors, may only save entries as drafts. And once satisfied with their entries, contributors can transfer their entries to an editor who may then publish the entry to the weblog. But anyway, let's show you how to set up an author to an existing weblog. So, if you're not on your main menu, get onto your main menu, and then in the shortcuts down here, let's go down again, we will add other weblog authors. and I'm going to add an author, which is down here. I'm going to add a chap called Jack, whose email address is jack@gmail.com. Just a word about email addresses that people give. You're probably aware that putting your email address publicly on any website does increase the amount of spam that you get. Now, if the authors that you're going to add now have a problem with it, it might be advisable to set up a free email service for them, one of the providers like Yahoo or MSN or Google's Gmail, which is a good one. Remember that anyway. Their website URL is optional. I'm going to give a password for this one and confirm it. And then we'll need to save it, and then we'll come on to the permissions, which we will set in a moment. So we'll just wait for this to come up. And here we are. Now let's take a look at these permissions here. There are some general permissions which I've spoke about, that if you give this, like if you turn this on, that the user can create new weblogs, or the user can view the activity log, then that applies over the whole Movable type installation, not just this weblog. And so that's a general permission, almost like super user permissions. But we're going to do something a little bit more there. We're actually going to add this person to Mom's Business. Click on the Add button. Let's go down a bit more. And then we're going to look at the various permissions that we can give them. Well, first of all, we obviously want to give this person permission to post, otherwise there's no point in them being an author. This one here, Configure Weblog, means they could modify any of the weblog settings, you know, the configure section there. This next one, Upload File, gives them permission to transfer graphics or any other kind of files to the server. This one here, Rebuild Files, gives them permission to publish all of the files that comprise the weblog. This will be useful to turn on, even for the most limited user. Otherwise, there's no point of them posting if they can't publish. This one here, Edit All Posts, means that the person can edit anybody's posts, even though they may not have actually written them themselves. This one here is Send Notifications. Send an email about a new entry to the notification list. This here, self-explanatory, to edit the templates that actually display the weblog. This one here, to create and edit categories. That's a very useful thing. We should talk about categories later, but I wouldn't give this to a new author that has limited abilities. This gives the ability to edit authors and their permissions, setting permissions for any author on the weblog. A minimal user wouldn't require this. And this one, Edit the address book. For a new author, a person that's just going to be given permission to post new entries, they just require Post and Rebuild Files. These other ones you can set at a later time. So we'll save this away. Wait for it to come up, and there it is done. Your changes to the permissions have been saved. Excuse the drawing. And that's it for now. You've actually put into your system a new author, you've configured their settings, and that author themselves can now put new entries into the weblog and publish them. So, having installed and configured our system, we're now ready to make our first posting to our blog, to our weblog. From the main menu then, click on the weblog that we're going to be working with and click on New Entry. The first thing we're going to do is to make life simple. So click on New Entry. You'll notice this form here. It's quite extensive, quite a lot of information here. You've got 1, the title, 2, primary category, if you've got categories, the body of the entry 3, extended entry 4, excerpt 5, the status of the article 6, comments, if accepted or not 7, accept trackback pings, yes or no 8, the date of and time of authoring 9, what you're going to do with the text formatting 10, and the URLs to ping, that's other sites to notify that you've posted a new entry, that's item 11. Quite a lot of items there, but we need to make life simple, so what we're going to do is to customize this page. Fresh pop-up comes up here. Let's just make it basic. We can always go to advanced later. Basic and save. This will reload and you'll find now that you've just got an entry for title, the status, whether it's draft, publish or future, leave that on draft for the moment, the text of your item, your blog item, and that's it. What could be more simpler than that? I would suggest for the moment you leave it like that as we now move on to create our first entry. So let's create our first blog entry with this simplified form. I'm going to put a title. This is our very first one, remember. Welcome to momsbusiness.com. The status, well, we can either set that draft for the future or publish it now. We're going to go straight to publish, and I'm going to put the body in. Hello there and welcome to momsbusiness.com. In this blog my spelling's atrocious. In this blog we hope to provide you with a wealth of information regarding opportunities for business for mums. You can also have a look at www.worm.com, workathomemums.com. There's a number of formatting things here. For example, we can highlight the word wealth and make that bold. You'll notice that it puts the HTML attributes strong there. You don't have to remember them. It's amazing, it'll put them in automatically. We can also put, let me have a look at also, and I'm going to make that italic. There we go there, see it's put the HTML, and I'm going to make a link from this item. There's a link, and it's got the URL there automatically there. That's it, that's my first one, and I'm going to go to the bottom and say preview it first of all. Wait for this to come up, and here's the preview. I'm going to save this entry. It's rebuilding as we go. pinging the sites. We'll talk about pinging later. This is letting other people know that you've got a new entry there. We'll pause this until that's done, and that's done. There we go. It comes back to this page, and let's view the entry. There we go. You've got your bold here, you've got your italics here, and you've got a link to Work at Home Mums there. And there's our first entry. We're going to take a little bit deeper, the entries, look a little bit deeper at this entry in a moment. But there's our first one, posted and listed, our very first blog item. Okay, so now we've posted our very first blog entry, I want to ask the question, what's happened to it? What have they done with my blogma? We're going to look a little bit more detail into that now. Now, in between the last video and this one, I have actually created a second entry. You'll see we've got two there now. We can look at those here. Hi there, this is the second entry. I wanted to put that in because I needed to show you something about how the archives work. When you post an entry, it publishes it in a number of different places. Firstly, it publishes it on the main page. This is Mum's Business main page. Essentially, as you see the title at the top there, it is still index.html or index.htm. Obviously that's a default entry which will come up anyway, even if you just type in up to the MT. It will look for the index.html. If I press enter there again, the same page is up. So that's the first place that Movable type puts your blog entry. It also puts it in a number of other places as well, particularly the syndication files, the RSS files as sometimes they're called. I'm just going to take a look at these now. One of them is called atom.xml. We will be going into this later, but this is a feed, this is an Atom XML feed, and we'll see, here is the second entry here. There's the more information about it there. And further on is the very first entry, welcome to mumsbusiness.com. We can see the title. We can see the summary type and various other pieces of information. This is where it's all contained when you're going to syndicate something. That's the Atom file. It's also published elsewhere in the RSS1 file, which is index.rdf. Similar kind of thing. There is your information there. There's the second entry, and there's the first entry here. And finally, that's RSS1, and finally there's RSS2, which is actually index.xml. That didn't take, you know why? Too many dots there. XML. And here's this one. There's an entry here, the second entry, and here is the first entry there. So this is a place that that it's published in. So that's the first index page, and these three syndicate feeds. It's also published in an individual archive page, which you wouldn't normally see, but I'll show you that now, archives.html. And there you see the two entries that we have there under the archives. You won't normally see the page like this, but this is where your entry is published as well. It's also published lastly in a monthly place. So you've got Archives, 2005, and April, and there they are there. So they're published in Archives as well as an individual archive page. Let's go back to the index again. That's the index HTML, the default home page. Here we are again, and look at this in detail. Here is the title. Remember that? This is what we typed in as the title. Here is the entry body, which you can see it's quite simple really. There's the entry body. Everything else that's there is needed, and we'll be looking again at greater detail at these later. All of these different types of entry that I've just shown you are compiled by the templates. Let's go back to the editing page and take a look at the templates. All of these files are created from these various template files here, which we'll be looking at again later. So at least now we know what have they done with my blogmar. We know where Movable Type puts these things. We're going to move on in a moment to actually editing an item and seeing the other fields which we can use. So we're now going to edit one of our entries. Make sure we're on the main menu to start off with. Then we'll go to Mum's Business Entries. And we'll click on this welcome to mumsbusiness.com entry here. Here's the entry here that we published earlier, and the very, very simple form that we used under the Keep It Simple scenario. Now we could change the status of this to draft, which would take it out of the published blog, so we could make changes and then publish it again. But what I'm going to do is to move away from the Keep It Simple stupid scenario and going to look at further at the number of different fields that you can use for this. So I'm changing the entry from basic to custom and enabling everything here. We'll make sure it's saved. The whole thing will now rebuild, and here we are now. Let's take a look at these fields in detail. You've got the title again, then you've got the primary category, and you can have a number of different categories on your Movable Type weblog. We don't have any at the moment, and we'll be looking at that a little bit later. Here is the entry body which we typed earlier. Now it could well be that you have a massive body, quite a lot of text there, which you want to actually go not only into the entry body but an extended entry. Maybe possible to keep this for say 200 words and then the rest of the entry here. It's not mandatory. You could have the whole lot up here in entry body, but you can use this extended entry field if you want to carry it over. An excerpt here as well. This is a place for just writing a short account there. It can be as long as short as necessary, but if you leave it blank, then the excerpt becomes the first 40 words of the entry body followed by an ellipsis. That's a ... You've now got a keywords field, and this is a place where you can define a comma-separated list of terms that apply to the entry. So let's type in welcome, Mum's Business, work at home mum, that's a little acronym for that. or whatever keywords you want. Now these keywords are never used in any of the files used by Movable Types templates, but it does help when people are searching through your site, because the keywords get actually searched as well as the body text. And it might well be that you actually want to use keywords that are not in the text but would point people to your entry. So there's the keywords. This authored on field is a real doozy. This is absolutely lovely. Actually, I'm not sure whether doozy is the right word. What I mean to say is this is a very, very good item. This shows when the item was first authored, when it was first published. Now, you could change this to the past, or you could change it to the future. You can create entries for the future, and then it will be held rather until a set date and a set time. That really is lovely. And then it will be the first time the web log is actually rebuilt after that time, and then it will be republished again. If you give a past date or time, then it will be re-put into the web log at that timestamp, because Movable Type recognizes items in reverse chronological order. It must have this format: year, month, day and time in 24-hour syntax. So there we are, some extended fields. I want to look in a little more detail now about the use of extended entries. If you remember, we'll take a look at the entries that we have at the moment. Take a look at that welcome item we published, and here is the simple entry form for a blog entry. Keep it simple, stupid. But we may want to, as we saw, customize the display and add additional entries. You can do this from any of the entry screens that you saw, any of those messages there, and you can turn it on here. I'm going to turn it all on here, turn it on as we saw earlier, and once this is done, I'm going to give you an example of how this might be used. Let's save that away. Reload it, and here we are. You'll see the form there. Now we have a complete and extended form. I'm going to now click on New Entry, and here we are blank. Now, a good use for extended entries, etc., is if you're publishing lengthy papers, not exactly dissertations. It wouldn't be something that I would put on a blog, but an item that really is quite lengthy perhaps. Let me give an example of something I've already got here in a Word document, which I'm going to use to show you how to create this extended entry. Here is a paper which I've just got off the web, which is about information and the use of email and whether people trust it or not, e-commerce, a number of other items here. I'm going to take let me just put this away for a moment, and I'm going to put the title in of Email Trustworthiness. We've got no categories in our system at the moment. Now in the entry body, I'm just going to have the abstract, which is this here. Let me just copy this back to the new entry, and I'm going to paste this into here. So here is the abstract there. We'll then go down to the extended entry, which is this section here, all of the rest of it, essentially. Good old Office wants to remind me of all kinds of things that I'm not really interested in. I'm going to put that in the extended entry, and here we are there. I'm not going to put an excerpt there. Movable type will put a section in there, but under the keywords, let's go back up again. And here's these keywords here, which I'm going to utilize. There you go. Always remember to copy properly. I obviously didn't copy that, so that's Control C. Just check it again, Control C. Back to the new entry. Ah, the keywords were in there. I just didn't see them. There you go. And I'm going to publish this. Save it away. It's just rebuilding. It's pinging those sites, you'll remember. And that's now been saved. There it is there. Let's have a look at the site itself. Let's view the site. And here's the entry there. A couple of things to notice there. There's a lot of space here and here and here. This is essentially because I cut and pasted from within Word and then pasted it into Movable type, and so you would probably need to take out those extra returns there. If you typed it in directly, it would automatically wrap around. That's my fault for just using Word there. Word can be quite awkward in its formatting, but you get the principles there. And then it tells me to continue reading. This is where, if you click on here, you would get the whole shooting match. There's the abstract there, which is the body copy, and there is the extended entry, introduction, and the rest of it there. Quite a large article there. Let me hit the back button, and there you go. You will always see this You'll always see that when you've got extended entries, and that will enable you to see the whole lot. Let me just go back to that edit field there. Here we are there. Now the interesting thing is the entry body field doesn't have any limit at all. So you might think it's extra work to split it up between the entry body and the extended entry. And if your blog entries only really have a couple of paragraphs or so, then it might be better to keep the simple entry form that we saw earlier. If I was to actually go back now to make this a simple entry form, it wouldn't actually lose the extended entry. It would just mean that you couldn't edit it, and any further blog entries would just have the simple form. The wonderful thing about Movable Type, though, is that although it is a weblog editing tool, you can use it for all kinds of things, to create web content, anything that needs to be arranged chronologically. But the keys to remember, if you are using the extended entry, is to use them perhaps in this way. The title would be the headline. The category, if you've got them, is where you're putting them, what category. The entry body would probably hold the first paragraph, lead paragraph, or whatever, number of paragraphs. The extended entry would the rest of the body, the main body of your article. The excerpt, perhaps a summary, something more short. The keywords, search terms that apply to the blog entry that you've got there. And so this is a good way of using the extended entries that we've looked at. But again, let me repeat, if you're only going to be using a few paragraphs per entry, then I would suggest that you keep it simple. So then, we've reached the end of this session. What we've done, we've taken a copy of Movable Type from the website, we've made the necessary alterations and changed the configuration files, we've uploaded it to our server and we've run it, again configured a few more things, and we've put our first weblog entries there. So there you go, learning Movable Type, and you've installed your own copy. I do hope you've found this video training session useful. Look out for the complete Learning Movable Type CD-ROM out soon, where we'll be going through not only this but a lot more. Thank you for joining me. My name's Leonard. Goodbye.